Good morning, Randy. How are you, man?
Doing good. It's that part of the year where teachers are, starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, hoping it's not a train as they end the school year. And, it's the same as for us. I mean, you go from one thing to the next, take it day by day. And I thought it would be kind of cool to talk a little bit about just the human condition and the emotional wellness of not only ourselves, but our students as we move in towards the end of the school year and start getting into testing season and what we would probably call maybe high stress situations, as we finish out the year. And I know you and I have talked about this before, and we got to take care of ourselves. Our own emotional wellness is important. We've discussed burnout before and all those sorts of things, but I think that let's maybe just talk a little bit about self-awareness in front of our students and how we communicate with them.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I'll just start by, a lot of times we'll be talking about something, Randy, and we'll say, guilty as charged, meaning that we've done the same kind of things. And I've made so many mistakes in the past, and I think I'm way better at this now. But I made so many mistakes in the past talking to my students with my ego in mind, talking with my students, trying to make excuses for things that I wasn't doing well, possibly blaming it on other people, blaming it on judges, for example, blaming it on I don't know, saying that other groups that might be doing better than us, that's not fair, it's not right, those kind of things, instead of just talking to our kids about where we're at and why we're where we are, and just being honest about the fact that we're in this together. First of all, one of the things that I get very concerned about these days, Randy, is teachers that will talk to their kids, in a very caring way, but in some ways, the kids will walk away feeling like they haven't done a good enough job. And I think we just got to be very careful there, because for the most part, I think if kids are in our bands, our orchestras, our choirs, they want to be there. There's very few kids that don't want to be there. Now, we always have those few, and we get it. We've all been there. But for the most part, I think it's, and it's so easy for me to say this being as old as I am. But man, if I was to do this again, Randy, I'm telling you, every time I would talk with my students, first of all, I'd want to know how they feel, first of all, instead of them hearing from me. Okay. And then I'd also want to offer suggestions about how they get better, but getting them to understand that we're in this together. I'm not blaming them. I'm not getting on them for making mistakes. I don't care if someone else beat us or did better than us. What we should be about is how do we positively motivate our kids to want to continue to work towards excellence? And I'm not sure I'm saying all that in the right way, Randy, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And I think most directors would know what I'm talking about too. It's our responsibility, I think, number one, for our kids to want to come back the next day. I mean, Randy, do you agree with that? I just think that's so important. More than anything, our kids need to say, hey, can't wait to be back in that band class tomorrow. Can't wait to come back and work, because we have a big show this Saturday or whatever, or competition. Can't wait to come back and do that again. I mean, I really believe that's one of the most important things for us to do right now as teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I was guilty of this too. I mean, sometimes I think we're afraid to know how the students really feel because that somehow is going to indict or it's going to make us feel bad. And I think the mindfulness piece of that is, be present and be cognizant. And sometimes I think students think that we just have to tell them everything. We have to tell them how to feel. We have to tell them how to think. And that's why, I too have changed that perspective over the years of teaching that we taught, the number of years we taught in our age. It's easy to look back now, and it is easy to some degree. Some people might say, oh, you guys are just, you had the advantage of having taught for 30 odd years. And so now you're reflecting, and yeah, that's true. But we're trying to tell you things that we as teachers felt like maybe we could have done better or done differently. And so that's the whole reason for sharing that information, right? Um, my dad used to always say, if you're going to point the finger at somebody, the other three point right at you. And so I think and I think that it's very, very important that we not be afraid to hear a kid say, I just don't think that you taught that very well, or I didn't understand, you didn't clarify. We need that kind of feedback. I mean, we absolutely do. But in the end, being kind and being in it together is absolutely the right way to go. I mean, not worrying that you can only control what goes on in your classroom. And if you don't have a good handle on that, then all the other excuses don't matter. So just, ask yourself, how many times a day do I ask my kids questions to pique their awareness, to continue to monitor whether or not we're effectively engaging them or effectively teaching them the things that we think they need to know to be better musicians and better people. And to me, that's once you start doing that, I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Once that relationship piece is a two-way street, and the students feel as though they're part of the process because you're asking them questions and because you're engaging them and you care about what they think. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them all the time, but just the fact that you act like that matters can make a world of difference in your emotional health.
And I'll tell you, two of our good friends, Randy, who I think are better at this than I know I ever was. And one of them was one of my former students, Mike Pote, at Carmel. And people wonder why Carmel is so successful. Well, if you go watch Mike work, he never raises his voice to the kids. Before he'll say anything negative to the kids, he'll ask them first what they're hearing, what they're thinking. Another one is our good friend Chip Krotz from Blue Devils. You listen to how Blue Devils play as a brass line, and even myself, when I stand in front of them, I'm still blown away at how good they are. But Chip, again, never raises his voice. It's just great information. And there's this great back and forth dialogue, and both those teachers are just tremendous at that. So those are two examples of people that I would never worry about putting in front of any group of kids, no matter how much that group is struggling, because they're going to figure out a positive way to make changes. And that's what I encourage all of us to do. Randy, you and I have both been in front of honor bands, even recently, that we've kind of thought in the back of our mind, oh man, how am I going to get this done with this group? They're really struggling. But you know what? First of all, it's not their fault. It's our job to try to get them to a new level, and we just do that as positively as we can. And so I can't encourage people enough, especially as we're getting close to festival. I can't believe we're even getting close to talking about drum corps and marching band again. To just keep that positive outlook and think of information without attitude. That's one of my philosophies right now, is information without attitude.
Great advice for those of you out there, and we hope you enjoyed this morning's coffee talk. We wish you the best as you continue to prepare for spring events. And Richard, it's always good talking to you. And today was no different. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Randy. Just always a pleasure to be a part of this coffee talk segment. And like Randy mentioned, we both hope that this helps out there. We've just done this a long time, and our friend Paula Kreider jokes sometimes saying, whether you like it or not, old people know stuff. And we're plenty old, me more than you, Randy. But we've lived through some things, and so we do know some things, and we're just trying our best to pass this information along to help teachers. And we certainly hope it does, because we care about you guys. We know what you go through, and you guys, the girls, our friends, everyone that's out there doing this, staff members, we know what you go through, and we're there for you. So if we can ever help, just give us a holler, please.
All right. Well, have a great week, everyone. And thanks again, Richard.
Take care, folks.